Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we're trying to find the best of fun books out there. And this time we are reviewing Dungeon Crawler Carl by Mat Dinniman. And this is a genre that I have never experienced before. I would have labeled it as a fantasy action, but Amazon has a new category, a new genre that I've never heard of before, lit RPG. So it looks like they're books that are a literary equivalent of a role-playing game. And so it has a lot of the role-playing elements. Your character has an inventory and levels up certain skills and has goals that are laid out with, non-player characters that, are there just to guide them to the next quest or something like that. And I'm like, what is this? I like role-playing games. I don't play too many of them, but I like the idea. So I looked at this and went like, ooh, this sounds really interesting. And it was. It was very different, very interesting. I think there's a bunch more out there now like this, but this is the first one I've ever encountered, and I will probably find more after this. Okay, let's talk about the plot specific to this book. So in this, it starts out with, I guess, the setup is that Earth has been seeded long ago by aliens, and aliens are now coming to reclaim the planet, and as part of that, they're doing a gigantic game, a dungeon crawl, and so a whole bunch, millions of humans are get to become part of the game, and you start out at level 1 as a level 1 character. And as you go deeper in the dungeon and do all the role-playing elements of, gathering loot and getting higher levels and getting all sorts of stuff like that, you go deeper in the dungeon until either you quit or you die. And that's pretty much the plot of the book. It's basically our main character is trying to survive going through this live-action game. Okay, so things that I like about this book. I really liked the role-playing elements. I liked the creativity involved in that. So you have really random achievements. I thought it was hilarious. Apparently in this, it's not like a limited number of skills and achievements. They're just all sorts of really random things. Like it'll be like, what is your skill level at breathing? Oh, you have a skill level of 3. Very good. What is your skill level at tying your shoe? It's only a level 2. Wow, you do horrible at tying your shoe. Whatever. And you're just like, it's silly and fun. And the achievements. The book comes up with all sorts of really creative, and it'll give a description, like a really funny long description, and then of this stupid little achievement. Look, you have done this. You have found your first bathroom. Congratulations. You may now use the pot. And it's silly. There's a level of humor to this that's really pretty good. I liked the humor involved, kind of tied in with those role-playing elements. It's fun, honestly, to see how the character, our main character that we're following, chooses or is pushed into leveling certain skills. Like, he starts out, his first thing he does is, he doesn't have any weapons or anything, so he punches a critter. And so he levels up his punching ability, right? And unless he finds good weapons, he'll just have to continue leveling up his punching, right? Or maybe he will get good at doing something because he discovers a new thing, like, maybe he finds a bow and arrow and shoots it, and so slowly gains better skill. And the way they have this set up is, if you level up your skill, you actually do genuinely get better at it. You may be like dexterity, for example. Let's say you start out with a normal human dexterity, but you keep somehow exercising that and get better and better. And then pretty soon you could like bounce off the walls like Spider-Man. And it's just, I find that fun to see that kind of growth in a character and what direction that will go and how the character handles it, how the author writes that. That's a lot of fun. So I like the RPG. I love the humor. Here's one example of the humor. I'll just give you one. I'm not giving you too many spoilers about this book, but so Carl, our main character, he enters a dungeon and I'm not going to tell you why, but he enters a dungeon with no pants. He enters it with just boxer shorts and a t-shirt kind of thing. And throughout this entire book, there's the running joke that he can find no pants. He's just constantly like, I want pants. And it doesn't matter what kind of loot he finds. He finds, knee guards, but they're not pants. He finds, a cloak, but that's not pants. He finds all sorts of things. Yes, it turns out to be really, I think, pretty funny. Yeah. Okay, so despite all this, it sounds like it would be pretty, I don't know, bulky or, hard to really get into. But the author does a fantastic job with characters. That's, the two strengths of this book are the world-building elements and the characters. And just the world-building elements itself would be fun, but the characters make this excellent. So what you have is our main character, Carl, and another character, Donut, which again, I'm not going to tell you much about it, but Donut is a cat. And these two are our main characters we follow throughout the whole book. And you really come to like these characters. These are likable characters. And not only do you like them, you really get into their head with choices. And to give you an example of that, there is a scene, and this comes in partially on negative stuff that I don't really like, but I'll describe it. So the characters lure we'll call it a fairy. That's probably not really what it is, but just because everybody knows what a fairy looks like. It's about this tall and has wings and can talk and reason and think, right? So they lure it towards themselves and then they kill it. And they discover they can loot, as in collect its dead body. So you have your little fairy here that's dead, and you really, Carl during this is like, this just feels so wrong, because here I am killing something that, it feels gross to be able to do that. And the character feels this, and you are feeling it along with this character. You could really, viscerally feel how much he really didn't like this whole experience. And that happens with several other things, where the author does a fantastic job of, you really are in the head of this character or these characters, really feeling what they're feeling. You can really, feel the tension when there's danger, and you feel the adrenaline when action is happening, and you feel upset when bad things happen. And that's really great. I'm going to contrast this because a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of episodes, I guess, I did the book Eruption. Now, in that book, you follow a character, and it has about the same level of personal, actually describing it, deaths of people. A whole bunch of people die in that book, a whole bunch of people die in this book. But in this book, for the most part, I cared about the characters, that you felt like our main character cared about the characters that were dying, as opposed to in Eruption, it was kind of like, oh, look, more people died. Well, I didn't really care. Our main character didn't care. Okay, let's just move on. So it was a very stark difference. I like this version much better. I like my characters to feel like real people. And I liked this character not just because I was feeling what they were feeling, but because he tended to make good choices. And I mean that good as in morally good. Like, instead of trying to harm other characters, other players, he actively went out of his way to help them. He comes across a group of elderly from a nursing home, level of elderly people that are stuck in this level 1 dungeon. They're in wheelchairs and walkers, and he helps them. He helps a bunch of them in several different ways throughout this book that he didn't have to. He could have just turned around and walked away at any time. But it made him a good character, that a morally upright, that you're like, yes, that man is a good man. And so you like him for not just being in his head, but because the choices he made were excellent. And he never made stupid choices. Like so many books, you have your main character and you're like, why did you do that stupid thing? But with this one, I really never felt that way. I really felt like most of the choices were logical and smart and, the best decision that could have been made at the time. And sometimes were outright clever. We're like, yes, wow, I didn't think about that. What a great idea. That kind of stuff. I like that too. Okay. The last thing I'll say on the things that I liked, because there was a lot I liked about this book, I really like this book, was that it feels like there are hints of a deeper thing going on beyond just surviving this dungeon. You don't get much, because from Carl's point of view, he can't know much, but you get these hints that there's a bigger universe going on and lots of machinations going on behind the scenes of maybe political maneuverings of various factions, or something going on that's like it's not quite going the way superficially it looks like it's going. And I kind of like that. I like that, you get that taste of a deeper thing that's probably going to run through many books, because this is one of a series. This is, I want to say there's like 7 of them or something like that now, and I have no idea whether that's the end of it or there's more. So yeah, I liked that. Anyway, the hints of a broader world. It kind of feels like Star Wars, where you have one story, but there's a lot more going on behind, in the wide world. Okay. Things I didn't like. We're going to switch to things I didn't like. Okay. I didn't like the Hunger Games aspect of this. So this book is a mesh of 2 things. It's the RPG, the role-playing stuff, and it is Hunger Games. And so you have everything about this dungeon crawl is being broadcast live to trillions across the galaxy, across the universe, and everybody, is watching, and you want to get more views, because if you get more views, maybe you'll get sponsors, and then you can get good loot boxes. Does this sound very Hunger Games? This sounds very Hunger Games. So there's a lot of that Hunger Games thing about that, and I do not like Hunger Games. I think that it's just such an inherently cruel setup that I just really don't like that. And so the aspect of this story that was more the Hunger Games stuff tended to be the stuff I didn't like. But I will say that this is a personal preference, that I didn't like it, but I don't count it against the book, because the book did it well. So it was well written, Hunger Games details. I didn't enjoy it, but it was good. Like, it was well done. Okay, something else I didn't like. I didn't like some of the more disturbing, graphic, gory, gross stuff. And there were definitely times where there was a lot of that. So one aspect of that, remember what I said about the fairies? He killed some fairies, and he was kind of like, I feel kind of horrible about killing these fairies. And you loot the bodies, so the whole body goes in your inventory. And it turns out, quickly he discovers that this body can be used to make a potion. So you have to put this little fairy's body in a blender and drink it. And that's a little bit much for grossness and gore and yuck. And that's just one example. There were several things like that was just like, oh. And now I'm not saying it's not unrealistic in the, obviously the setup that is going on here. Because if you think of RPG games, they're all the time doing things like that. You kill this orc, and so you get orc teeth, and you kill this thing and you get their ears and whatever, and you use them as potion ingredients, and you don't think anything about it because it's a video game. Well, because this is a lot more visceral than just a video game, you see those same things, and Carl himself is like, oh, And you do that, you kind of feel that way with him. I mean, it's kind of just, ew. So there's an ick factor going on there that I didn't like. And my final thing that I didn't like was the ending. It was definitely a cliffhanger. It almost feels like it's not quite, it stops in the middle of a sentence, but it's definitely the middle of a thought. Like, the person is like, and you're like, wait, what? Turn the page. Did I miss a page? No, it just kind of abruptly ends. And it was done on purpose to get you to buy the next one, and I kind of want to get the next one to see what happens, which leads me to my conclusion. It was a great book. I give it 2 thumbs up. It's going on my list of best of books. It's the first one of this kind of genre that I've come across, and I thought it was fantastic. I don't know that I would want a ton of these lit RPG books, because you might get really tired of that same system going over and over again, but probably grabbing some of the best of I might enjoy. And this one qualifies. It doesn't feel, it feels very tight in the plot, in the, there's never a time where I'm like, character, why are you doing that kind of thing? It was good. It didn't feel like the author left gaping holes. So they did a great job. So yes, this is one of those fantastic books that's going on my list as 1000 best of fun books. Okay, so my next book, part 2, I decided to try and find a mystery suspense book. And so I picked this one. It's 12 Months to Live by James Patterson and Mike Lupica. Now, I just did Eruption that had James Patterson, and I was not impressed. This one has a higher rating on Amazon than Eruption did, and it has a different secondary author at Mr. Lupica. Mike Lupica? I'm probably mispronouncing it, but whatever. So I'm going to try this one. 12 Months to Live, see what I like, think, suspense, thriller, mystery type of book, and see how that goes for my next book. I hope you will join me on a review of that one, and maybe we can expand our list even greater. All right, thank you for watching.